Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to another episode of Music Mondays with Brian Och. That's right, this is the show where usually we talk about concert photography and we take a single photo and go behind the scenes and tell you how we made that photo. But today we're going to do something different because today is special. As you can see, I'm wearing purple. And that can mean only one thing. That's right, we're going to talk about Prince. As you know, it's been 4 years since Prince passed away from an unfortunate accidental overdose of fentanyl. And many of you don't know, I was Prince's concert photographer. That's right, I was his tour photographer in 2011 on the Welcome to America Europe tour. Why he didn't call it Welcome to Europe, I don't know, but he's Prince, I'm not going to argue. Anyway, I was on that tour and did quite a few dates, and it was the best job I ever had. I'd like to thank Kevin Mazur for giving me the referral. And anyway, I was with Prince. I was in his dressing room. I was everywhere with him, except on his private charter plane. I did not fly on that plane. I often was in a bus or another plane. Anyway, it was the best job I ever had. It was also the most strenuous and the hardest job I have ever had. I can't imagine anything more difficult, but I would do it 1,000 times over. And anyway, we're going to jump right into some photos. Now, it's important to say these photos have never been seen. These are not in the public eye. And they are still copyright by MPG Records. I shot this for Wire Image. As I said, this was a referral. This was shot for Wire Image for MPG Records. So they retain the copyright. I am not selling these photos, and you shouldn't take screenshots of them or anything like that. Just enjoy them for what they are. As we celebrate his life 4 years after the, untimely demise. So first of all of these were taken at the North Sea Jazz Festival in Rotterdam. That's right, he was incredible at the North Sea Jazz Festival. He played 3 nights in a row as the headliner, and these are all from the first night, which was an incredible show. He was completely on, and he was never off. You know, some musicians, you see him and you're like, it was good, but they were phoning it in. There was no phoning it in with Prince. You just didn't do that. And if you did that and you were in his band, you weren't in his band very long. On this particular tour, he fired his longtime guitar tech, which was sad. He fired his lighting guy. No. The lighting guy was amazing and stayed the whole tour. He fired the sound guy during the show. He actually called him out and said, does it sound terrible? Long story, it was kind of sad. Anyway, you had to be on your game because he's Prince, and that's just how it is. So let's go to the first photo, and I'll tell you some more stories about Prince. So this photo, it's a tight shot. This is Prince making a Prince face. It's called a funk face. That's what he called it. And Prince didn't really like photos where he made funny faces. I had to gently persuade him to, see the beauty in him being a rock star and making that face, and that people love that. But he said, no, I don't really like that. So we would go back and forth, and he would always win. And then after I'd been there a while, near the end of the tour, he became more lenient, and I would plead my case and say, look, this is awesome. You like, this is amazing. And he'd be like, okay, you can have that. But he'd say it like this. He's like, okay, you can have that. Because he had a really deep voice, which is funny. So anyway, this was taken with a 5D Mark II. This is a 70-200 f2.8 classic concert lens. This was shot at 166 millimeters, 1/500th at f2.8, so fast shutter speed because I'm trying to freeze the action. And it's ISO 1250, so not that high because the light was pretty good. It was often pretty good on the Prince tour because he's Prince. He could afford some lights, which was good. It was kind of amazing to see, when we would go do a festival and he couldn't do his own lights. He kind of had to make do. And the lighting guy was amazing, and he would figure it out and make it look good. But this is classic Prince to me. It's a tight shot, and it's one of the few ones where he's not moving around or, running around being funky. He's still being funky, but he's being funky in a contained environment, I would say. And it's one of my favorites. No Photoshop on this. This is the color of the light. This is basically how it came out of the camera. Crop the bottom a little bit, that's it. Again, new Prince picture, never seen before, 2011. And now we're going to go into the second picture. And while we're looking at that, I'm going to tell you what made Prince so good. This is personal experience. Yes, he practiced a lot, early in his career. Yes, he could play, 20 instruments or something. Like, he could probably play the didgeridoo. Like, if you gave him one, he could probably figure it out and be like funky didgeridoo, the talent was crazy. He would play the drums, the bass, the keyboard, he would just grab stuff from his band members and play it. And it was amazing to see. He's a especially good bass player. That's something I learned. But what he would do, the crazy thing, and why he stood above other musicians that I photographed every night, is that when he was done with a show, so like we finished the show at like 1 in the morning or something, when he was done, he would go and take a shower, and I would wait in his dressing room to go over pictures with him. And the first night, when he came out of the shower, I don't know if I was expecting like sweatpants or, like a robe or something. He came out wearing like a gold lame jumpsuit and heels. And like in that second, I was like, of course. Of course he's wearing a gold lame jumpsuit, because there is no Prince casual. You know what I mean? Like I don't think he owned sweatsuit or something like that. That was like a little too below him. So he came out in this jumpsuit and I was like, absolutely awesome. That's great. And sat on the couch and we would go over photos. And then right after we went over photos, he would invite the band into his dressing room and they would watch the whole show that they just performed all over again. The whole show. 2.5 hours. They would sit there and watch it. And he would critique the show. And a lot of it was good. They'd get to a funky part and he'd get up and dance as he's dancing on the screen. So like I'm watching Prince dance to himself dancing. So it's like a Twilight Zone episode kind of. It's like totally funky, freaky. But it was amazing. So he'd do that and it was cool. But then he'd also critique band members. He'd be like, that was a B flat, or, you should have come in on 2. You come in on the downbeat or so. I'm making this up because I'm not a musician. But he would say stuff like that. And the first time he said it, he was like, you should have come in on the downbeat. I should fine you for that. And I was like, it's like, right. He was dead serious. He was like, look, if a baseball player who makes $5 million a year drops a fly ball, they should be fined. And I was like, you're absolutely right, actually. Come on. Like, if I miss that famous shot, I should be fined too. But usually you just get fired. Anyway, they would watch the whole show and learn from it. And he would say, this worked, this didn't work. And he would take it all in his little computer in his head. And that was just crazy. I've never seen anybody else do that. People might watch a clip or two. But nobody watches the whole concert right after they just did the concert. And I thought that was cool. And it's what made him different and amazing and special. So we're going to go on to the second picture. This is a more artsy picture, as I use that term loosely. Prince was really into the artsy stuff that I did. And that goes back from day one in Paris when I shot it. And I decided, I had never met him. So I decided I'm going to shoot this how I want to shoot it. I'm going to shoot pictures that make him epic, because he's an epic musician. And that might sound boring to some people, but you shoot a concert differently when you shoot it for yourself than when you shoot it for a certain artist. Like Taylor Swift, you shoot it for Taylor Swift, Beyonce, whatever. I was like, I'm shooting it for myself, how I see Prince, because I was the biggest Prince fan in Ohio growing up that you ever could imagine. I'm the kid that snuck the TV into my bedroom after my bedtime to watch the American Music Awards like really late at night because Prince came on at the end. and I'll get to that in a second. But I was that kid, so this is, of course, a dream job. So this photo was a more artsy photo. This is the stuff that I tried to make for him, and this photo's never been seen before either. And he's playing the bass in this photo. He's playing the Fender, I'm not sure what it is, but it was her bass. He just grabbed it from his bass player and started playing it. And I shot this with this is a 1D Mark IV. This is a 24-70 the version 1, the first version. This was shot at 40 millimeters, so it's a pretty wide shot, as you can see. I was kind of far away. 1/160th at f5.0, just trying to make sure it's sharp, and this is ISO 2000, so it's a little darker. And I just love this because of the atmosphere. Like, it just feels, you know, timeless. It's like a timeless shot of him. And it's artsy, and I love the lighting. You know, I often tried to isolate, you know, lights when he was backlit or side lit. I often tried to include them in pictures, just because I like the effect. I like how it looks. I like how it brings your eye to him. You know, it's like the light shining down. And it's a concert trick, you know, you can use spotlights, you can use whatever lighting you have. Always try to use it to your advantage. You know, if you can incorporate it into the photo, that's great. It makes it more dramatic. Like, if this is cropped like this, just him, it's a cool picture. But if you include the light, at least in my opinion, it makes it more dramatic. It makes it more interesting. And Prince really liked this picture. He thought it was cool, and that's all I needed to know. So before we go on to the next picture, another story about Prince that maybe some people don't know. There was no set list for the concerts. And what I mean is, you know, if you're shooting a band like The Who, or, you know, anybody, basically, any other band that I can think of generally, has a set list. So they have a show that they do every city. They have a show that is the tour, you know. And once you see it in Miami, it's the same in Chicago, and it's the same in LA. It doesn't change much. Usually they'll change up the encore, you know. They'll have 6 songs, and they'll choose 2 or 3 of them and rotate them in and out. But basically that's it. The set list stays the same. With Prince, like, that's so far from what he did. Nobody knew the set list for any show until they walked out on the stage and looked down at the floor where it was taped. I saw this happen. He would hand write out the set list before the show, like 20 minutes, 15 minutes before the show, based on what he was feeling that night. Now, certain sections of the show often were the same, and I mean, like, he did a montage of certain songs or whatever. That was usually in the show. But one show he started out playing jazz for 35 minutes. Like, that's what they did. And the real Prince fans were going crazy, you know, and the Prince fans who were not real Prince fans were like, let's go crazy, you know, because they didn't like jazz. But the real Prince fans thought it was amazing. So he would write this out, and he would give it to the girl, who would type it out, and then they would walk out and tape it on the stage, and then the band would walk out, and I would literally see them go, you know. And Prince told me, he's like, my band has to know 300 songs. And I was like, oh my God, like 300 songs. They have to know 300 songs. And I mean, they have to know them like this. And they did, and they would play different stuff every night, and that's why people love Prince, because it was different every night. It was the best concert you ever saw every night. So that was kind of amazing. Anyway, back to this picture. I just like it because it was artsy, and Prince seemed to love it. So let's go on to the next picture. Now, this is a montage. This is 3 pictures, very close together. Same show. This is the same Rotterdam, the first show at North Sea Jazz. These are all shot with a 5D Mark II, but this is interesting because I shot them all with a 50 millimeter lens. This is my 51.4. Not a usual lens I would use for a concert, but I always say when shooting a concert, if you can, you should always bring a wild card lens. And I call that a wild card based on the card game Uno. I think it was called Uno, where you got the wild card, and you could do anything or whatever like that. So that's what this was. This was with my 50, and it's the wild card lens. And I used this because he was not moving that much at the time, and I would put it on and shoot it at a shallow depth of field and just try to get something different. It doesn't really make a difference in these pictures, but that's what I shot them with. So this was all shot with a 5D Mark II, 50-1.4 at f3.5. This is ISO 640, so it's pretty bright. And this is 1/200th, like I said, at f3.5. And these show like various, Prince type moves, like there's the Prince at the mic that we've all seen. There's the Prince doing the the one finger, rock star god guitar thing. He was the best guitarist I've ever seen, right? And I've seen everybody. I've photographed everybody. Every night he was the best guitarist. And it was just awesome to see him be able to play up close. And then the last one, of course, on the right is him dancing. He did a little dance piece where he was backlit every time. And this is actually him backlit, but there's a strobe going off, so I was timing it to catch the strobe. And that's what this is. It's a strobe capture when he was lit. Otherwise, he's completely backlit and in the dark. And this threesome of pictures, to me, that encapsulates what it's like to see him in concert. He's a chameleon, He could go from guitar god to funk master to the best dancer you've ever seen, and he just melded it all into what we know as Prince. So with that, I'll have to talk about one other little story, and this is just a personal thing. Every day, when we did a show, the next morning we would watch the show in his dressing room, and we would go over the photos and everything. But we would all have breakfast. We would all have breakfast at about 6 or 7 in the morning. And you've heard the Prince making pancakes story and all that. He never made pancakes for me. I mean, we were on tour. But we did have breakfast together. And I got the feeling that it was his favorite meal of the day. I don't know. You're on a different time schedule when you're a superstar, a rock star, doing concerts late at night. It's very hard to relax. It's very hard to come down and everything. And we would all sit around at the table and have breakfast and talk about things. And I thought that was really special. And that's a memory that I'll hold, for the rest of my life. Like I said, it's been 4 years since we lost Prince, and it's very sad, and I still think about it. And when I got the news, I initially didn't believe that it was true until I checked the AP website, Associated Press, because if it's on AP, you can bank on it. And when I saw it there, I knew it was true, and it just made me real sad. Prince told me once privately, the last show I did with him, he pulled me aside and he said, these aren't pictures, you're making art. And I thought, if there's one person in my life as a kid that I could hear that I was an artist from, it would have been Prince. And that's what he said. And for me, that was the best thing to hear from anybody at the time. So anyway, Prince, if you're out there, I miss you, and we listen to your music all the time, and you're the biggest influence on a lot of people. So thank you. And anyway, that's it for this episode, and stay tuned for more episodes. And if you want to know more Prince stories, we're going to go and do some of those on Behind the Shot and Music Mondays. We're going to pick out certain photos and tell the stories behind them. So subscribe, and thank you for watching. Thanks. Complication.